Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Today's Friday, so we're having our story problem, and we are talking about measurement this week. We're actually going to stop measurement, and we're going to continue on a new unit next week because we realize that you guys are very, very smart, and you guys understand measurement very well. So this is our last time we're going to be talking about measurement. All right, so our story problem, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I was just about to, but thank God I realized that I shouldn't. So I'm going to give you this picture to help you visualize the story. It's going to help you a little bit. But remember, we do a 3 reads protocol. The first time we read, we're visualizing the story and we're thinking about who are the characters and what are those characters doing. The second time we read, we're going to pull out key vocabulary words that help us understand the problem a little bit more. And then the last time we read, our third read, we're going to put all of that information together and we're going to ask ourselves, what do we need to do to solve the problem? All right. Wait 1 second. All right, thank you, everyone. I just needed to get a picture of our story problem so I can read it to you. All right, so we're visualizing the story, making a movie in our head, and using this picture to help us visualize it. So Miss Rosales and Miss T were on a hike at the Griffith Observatory. And on their hike, they saw 3 cockroaches.
Wait, what?
Miss T was very scared. What's your scared face, T? Miss Rosales wanted to know which cockroach was the longest. Look at the picture of the cockroaches Miss Rosales and Miss T saw on their walk. Using the sentence stem, show Miss Rosales and Miss T which cockroach is the longest. All right.
Wait. Time out. Time out. My students already know this. I do not like cockroaches. And they all know the story.
I think everyone knows that nobody likes cockroaches, especially first grade teachers, because we see those cockroaches a lot and we do not like them in our classroom, in our house, anywhere. So Miss Hernandez, can you tell us what's happening in this story? And remember, boys and girls, you can pause the video to ask to share what you think the story is about, who the characters are, what the characters are doing with your brother or sister or your mom or dad right next to you.
So in the story, Miss Rosales and Miss T went for a hike, but on their hike, they saw some cockroaches. And they were looking at the cockroaches more carefully, and they want to know which one is the longest.
Mm-hmm. All right, so perfect, Miss Hernandez. Thank you for sharing. We are going to read our story a second time, and I know these are cartoons, so they're a little bit more cute than the real ones, but they're still really gross.
They're never cute.
So we're going to read the story problem for a second time, and this time we're going to pull out those key vocabulary words. All right. So Miss Rosales, can you read the story for us a second time?
Sure. Miss Rosales and Miss T were on a hike and saw 3 cockroaches. Miss T was very scared, and so was I. Miss Rosales wanted to know which cockroach was the longest. No, I didn't. Look at the picture of the cockroaches Miss Rosales and Miss T saw on their walk. Using the sentence stem, show Miss Rosales and Miss T which cockroach is the longest.
Okay. So Miss T, what vocabulary words are sticking out to you?
Well, because in our second read, we're looking at the math. Mm-hmm. So I saw the number 3. So I know that tells me how many cockroaches we're looking at. And then I didn't see any other numbers, but I noticed the words longest. And so when I hear the word longest, I know that we're comparing the length of something. So how long something is, because the word longest is in there. So we're going to be looking at which one's the longest.
Perfect. So yes, we do have 3 different cockroaches, and we are looking at length in this video or in this assignment, right? Length is how long something is. So how long, right? Horizontally, when you're laying down, how long you are, not when you're standing up, that's tall. We're thinking about the length of something. So All right, so let's go to our third read. In our third read, we're going to ask ourselves, what do we need to figure out? All right, so Miss Rosales and Miss T were on a hike and saw 3 cockroaches. 1, 2, 3. Miss T was very scared. So was Miss Rosales. Miss Rosales wanted to know, though, she also knows that she can use math in the real world. She wanted to know which cockroach was the longest cockroach. Look at the picture of the cockroaches Miss Rosales and Miss T saw on their walk. Using the sentence stem, show Miss Rosales and Miss T which cockroach is the longest. All right. So Miss Rosales, what do we need to do to solve this problem?
So first and foremost, we're trying to figure out what they're asking us to do. They are asking us to find the longest cockroach. It says using the sentence stem, show Miss Rosales and Miss T which cockroach is the longest. So we know what we're looking for. So I love that this picture has a line indicating where the start point is, because that's something that you shared with us that was very important. The items that we're comparing have to be lined up against a line. And so these are all starting in the same space.
So you can see their bottoms are touching that space. So they're all touching the space. Yes. So we can line them up.
Yes. And so now that we have all of them lined up in the starting point, then we could look at the tip of their nose, not that I want to, and see, yes.
I have a question. Are we going to count the tip or are we going to count their little, I don't know what this is. Their
antenna?
Little antenna?
Yeah, you're right. It should be the antenna because we're counting all its body parts.
Oh, so are we in agreement that we should count the antenna as well? Because that was a question I also had. I asked myself, would I start at the tip of the nose or the antenna? Because it creates a different length.
Yeah, but would you forget your leg? I don't think you would.
No, you're right.
Or your arms? Yeah. You wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Ms. Rosales. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to use the antenna as their ending mark, right? So we have their little bottom, which is the 1 point, and then their antenna as their ending point. Okay, so what are some tools we can use to measure which cockroach is the longest? Does anyone have an idea? Miss T?
Well, I remember, Mr. Kimulich, that you've been talking about reference points. And so being able to use reference points to measure and compare your cockroach A, B, and C.
Right. So we have the reference point of their bottoms, but now we need a reference point for the top of their antenna, right? So we can start with cockroach A and we can make a reference point. So right here is the tip of their antenna. So I'm going to try my best to draw this as straight as I can. Okay. What do we notice about this reference point? Miss Rosales?
We notice that cockroach A is smaller than cockroach C, and we notice that cockroach A is bigger than cockroach B.
Correct. So we see that there's a space, and if we draw a reference point for our friend cockroach B, we can see, that this reference point still hits the kind of the body of cockroach C and the body of cockroach A. So that one's probably the shortest cockroach. All right, so now we need to see cockroach C, and what do we notice when I draw the reference point for cockroach C? All right, Miss T, what do you notice?
That it doesn't touch any of the cockroaches, so it must be the longest cockroach.
Right, so we have all this space from cockroach A all the way to cockroach C's antenna. So all this space tells us that the cockroach C is longer, right? So what would be our answer, and how can we use our sentence stem to show Miss Rosales and Miss T which cockroach is the longest? Miss Hernandez?
So now that we determined that cockroach C is the longest, I would put cockroach C is the longest cockroach for the first response.
Ooh, okay, perfect. So I want to make sure that I'm capitalizing my first letter, and I'm going to write cockroach because it's a cockroach, and then C, that's its name in this case. I should have named them, Named them.
Oh, it's okay.
All right, and Miss T, what do we do for the next sentence stem?
I would say cockroach B is the shortest cockroach.
Cockroach C. Oh, B, sorry. Cockroach B is the shortest. And then we can move this around. There we
It's
go.
always the middle child that gets left behind.
I know. So we see here that cockroach C is the longest cockroach. Cockroach B is the shortest cockroach. And we did that by using our reference points. But there are other tools you can also use on Seesaw to help you, right? So if we wanted to, let's erase the drawings. Oopsie, I can't see. I think that, okay. If we wanted to erase the drawings, we can use our 10 rod, right? And so I can go to my shapes and then I go to this 10 rod, and I'm so happy that they have a 10 rod. And we can maneuver the 10 rod. We can turn it around by using this square and rotate button. That means to rotate it. There we go. So it makes a 180 flip, right? And so we can use that to measure all of our cockroaches. So what we can do is we put it on the line right here so that it's at the same starting point as all of our cockroaches, right? We need to make sure that we have the same starting point. All right, and then now we can count from this antenna. This one might be a little bit difficult, so I might need somebody's help to help me explain how many squares this cockroach is. Ms. Rosales, do you have an idea?
So at this point, we can choose to include the antenna or just do the tip of the nose for just for this reference.
No, that would be a good one. Ms. T, do you have a different idea or you want to add on?
I think that's a great idea, but I want to remind our mathematicians that if you measure cockroach A with just the nose, you have to do the same thing with cockroach B and C. So whatever you choose has to be the same for all three objects.
Oh, thank you for helping us include that. Yes, we need to remember that we need to measure the cockroaches the exact same way in order to have a accurate measurement, right? So what are we thinking, teachers? Do we want to include the antenna for this, or do we not want to include it? So give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. All right, let's not include it for this time, and we'll just use the tip of their nose. So let's count how many squares long this cockroach is. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this cockroach is 5 squares long, okay? All right, so now let's erase that and let's move our measuring tool to the next cockroach. Okay, we have cockroach B. Okay, we have his little nose right here though. So let's see, we have 1, 2, 3.
That's it.
That's it? Okay, so he's just 3 squares long. Okay, so now let's erase our little checkpoints and let's go to the next cockroach and measure our little friend here. And then let's see where his nose lands.
Yeah, pretty close.
All right, and then we're going to count the squares. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We could do 7 even if we wanted to. What we notice is that the numbers here, that even if it's a 6 or a 7, it's still the biggest number.
So he's right in between. I would say like 6.5, right? 6.5, 7. So we can put he's about 6 to 7 squares long, right? We can either round up or round down. But we're using the same tool and we're using the same reference point, his nose. So from this, which cockroach is the longest cockroach? Ms. Rosales?
Longest one is C, unfortunately.
Yep, it's still C. So that didn't change, even though we used our a different measuring tool. Which one is the shortest cockroach, Ms. Hernandez?
That would be cockroach B because it has the smallest number of units.
Perfect. Thank you for referring to our units. And so it still stays the same, even if we use our reference points or if we use our squares, our 10 rod to measure our cockroaches. So you can decide which which tool you want to use to help measure your cockroaches. Remember, you're going to get the same story problem, except your cockroaches will be different in their order and in their size. So make sure that you are paying attention, because it might not be cockroach C that's the longest in your problem, or cockroach B. Remember, we want to make sure that we're understanding the problem and we know how to measure the length of our cockroach and compare them to other items. So you're doing an awesome job. We can't wait to see all of your work, and have a great weekend. We'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe.